Welcome to another episode of the Limitless Life podcast. I am your host, Kyle Smith. And if you have not done so, hit that subscribe button so that you never miss another episode. And if you love this podcast and want some more tips and tricks on how to improve yourself, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. There are a ton of instructional videos there. You can find the links below. But for today, my guest is Ry Hickey.
Hello.
Ry, my man, how is it that what you do impacts other people's lives?
Just comes out guns blazing. I love it. How do I impact people's lives? Well, primarily it's by way of nutritional manipulation, but obviously that comes along with a bunch of other byproducts. That's a great question to ponder on, and it's probably one that's better answered by my clients, really, because you see such a spectrum of change. Some are just ready to implement and really embrace the changes and starting the process of measuring and managing their nutritional intake and lifestyle behaviors. And then others are so much more hands-on, and they're also the more fulfilling ones, that can have the most tremendous life changes, like well beyond just what they look like physically. So I just do my best to meet people where they're at, man, and continue filling my toolkit and overcoming my own challenges, and then doing my best to apply that to people that have similar struggles.
Nice. I like that. So you're teaching someone else how to get out of the same mess that you found yourself in once upon a time, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. What do they say? Your mess is your message.
Yeah,
I think that's just some marketing.
it is.
But yeah, no, it's definitely, I mean, I think that's that definitely is the stuff that resonates the most. Like when I'm sitting down, I'm writing, the deal. Sometimes you'll just be like, oh, I got this. I just had this client call, and you're reflecting on it. And then you're like, I'll go on this tear of either a IG story, a video, or just like a text feed, or writing of content for a script that I'm going to do. And so often the stuff that seems to resonate the most with my kind of ideal client is the stuff that, to your point, is like the mess that I found myself in. So just being like, taking that moment to really transport yourself as best you can back to where you were at, which is really hard to do because our brains are not great at that. They're good at distorting the reality of our pasts, but in either direction, really. But like being able to think, what was the biggest challenge, and then just trying to speak to that. It's like, even just with a simple practical example of like starting to track your nutrition. Like I was so against that. I never did that. I thought it was obsessive. I thought it was so time consuming, and this just big crazy thing that only people with eating disorders or bodybuilders did. And then seeing, juxtaposing that or contrasting that to like the level of misery that I created for myself back then, with just lack of results and frustration and like roller coaster of hyper restriction followed by just total disinhibition and loss of control of intake, and how I approach it now as a result of tracking my nutrition. It's like just this thing that drives me. It's like, man, I have to help people discover this. You can have delicious treats and progress within your journey towards, a healthy body. And so I try and like transport myself and be like, what was I thinking? What were the narratives that were occurring in that moment? And those definitely, when I can successfully, oh yeah, I used to have this belief, and then I can speak to that now, being on the other side of it. People are like, oh man, I get more messages as a result of that than probably any other form of content, really.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So on the note of changing beliefs, because I think that's really cool, that we can mold our beliefs, we can change the story. So let's say, what's a common false belief, or maybe not false belief, because people believe that it's real at that time. But what is a common belief that you find yourself guiding people through?
Good question. Common one. I would say one of the most common ones is some form, I'll keep it general because it's more applicable, but it's some form of dogmatic dietary BS that they've been convinced of via some charismatic influencer who's selling supplements or something. Again, I won't like throw people under the bus, but there's just so much of that nonsense that goes on, and it's this interesting sort of dynamic of the nutritional realm, in that those who are doing the actual research, who are actual scientists, who actually have their PhDs in nutrition, and not like they're not chiropractors turned, YouTubers or whatever. It's like, though they're rarely they're rarely as good looking, charismatic, and like driven to be in the public eye, because doing research is so time consuming, and like they're just kind of more like nerdy scientists. And I think there's an emergence of like definitely I don't want to paint like a dystopian picture, but the deal. It's a bit of a interesting thing out there. And as a new
Mishmash.
Yeah, and as a new coach, like I remember when I first started, you're just like, holy shit, how do I approach this stuff when someone comes and they're like, they just believe that like, carbs equals fat gain, like carbs cause an insulin response, and insulin causes fat gain. Like they don't have any, it's a belief. It's just set. It's like carbs equals fat gain. That's it. And so that's just this like, whoa, this deep deeply entrenched belief that people come into a program with, but they're frustrated as all hell with their results, so they're obviously like meekly putting their hand up or whatever. But yeah, the sort of dissection and bringing awareness to like, okay, this is my belief, and then helping one start to poke holes in it. It's an art form. It's not this like, you can't just spew the science on them. You have to be like, tell me about where that came from. Like, interesting. Like what was it that got you interested in that? Or, okay, you learned it from this guy. Okay, cool. And like, again, it's this crazy but beautifully challenging balance of just being genuinely curious, and knowing that on the other side of that, you can actually help them create more freedom within their lives. And nutrition, it just expands. It's like we all eat every single day for the most part, unless we're doing a lot of fasting.
Yeah.
And so it's just like food is a big thing. Like nutritional intake, it is far more, it's far reaching,
Mm-hmm.
so
It's
usually
something
it's
that
around
unites
that.
all of us.
Yes, exactly. We all chow food,
Yeah, and we all love it.
we all love food, I guess. And the other one would be like, just sort of, let's say someone who's always been overweight, and that's just in there. It's like, I've always been overweight, and there's this underlying, whether they say it directly or not, there's this underlying belief, I'll always be overweight because I always have been. They don't even know what it's like to be of normal body composition. So there's just this like, underlying sort of belief, and then they have all this doubt wrapped up in another program that they're trying, because they've tried a bunch of other shit, and their family has learned to basically they're all their affiliations are like, here we go again, Jimmy's gonna go through this and then they're gonna fucking rebound. It's like I strive to try and do it in a way that can be sustainable, and like a big part of that is just that nurturing of the relationship and helping them break those beliefs for good.
Totally. And it's also it's hard for people to understand what the opposite side of something, if we understand one side, it's really tough to understand the other if we've never experienced it before. And if we've been in a place for so long and that becomes our new normal, then we don't have any information to be like to compare it to. So it's hard to really pursue something if there's just no idea of what it's like. Like if you're like tried something, then you're like, oh, I want to try more of that. But some people just have never tried.
Yes, totally, man. That's such a fascinating, like, philosophical topic that I just love, because man, it's like, I think I wrote a post about this the other week as well, about like, that it's human, like, by observation, I can't see that you have evidence of knowing what it's like to go through what I'm going through. Therefore, whatever you're telling me is moot. It's like it's like a glitch. It's like, nah, man, like, you don't know what this is like. And the more that I learn about just the human experience, and actually, just reading like fairly heavy, like dense scientific lit in like psychology and just human behavior stuff, it's like, the more that I most of this stuff comes back to me, because to your point, it's like, I don't know what that's like. I don't know. Like, I've been very frustrated with my results, so to speak, and put way more effort towards my fitness and nutrition, and gotten like next to nothing in results back. That's frustrating. But like, I don't know what it's like to be morbidly obese. I don't know what that's like. So then for me to just be like so curious, like genuinely just like, what is that like? And then and it's intermittent for me, man. Like, this will be an ongoing journey. It's like, I want to be just so present and truly just okay with confrontation, with not having the answers, with appearing like the dumb person, like all my fucking like insecurities from past, just being okay with all of that, things that I've very understandably as a human just like learned to try and combat. And then, like humans usually do, overcorrecting, trying to use a bunch of fancy words and confusing everybody and myself, and then being like, well, that doesn't really accomplish what I ultimately want. And so the point being, it's like that curiosity is just, it's this, again, hard to describe. There probably is a science to it, but we don't really have the tools to really know what it is yet. But it's like that genuine curiosity is what ultimately gets the other person more bought in. They're like, man, fuck, Ry really actually does care. He like listens to me, and he asks amazing questions, like we were talking about before you started recording. Like, you ask good questions and people think about that, like, man, that really got me thinking. And then it's not even like I'm giving specific advice on a call. Sometimes it's just like, they then are like, well, what did I miss from my call with Ry last time? Oh, he said this in his last check-in. Like, I'm going to try that. And they wouldn't have done that if I was just like, well, you didn't do this last week, and it's less curious and more accusatory, even if it's just a underlying tone, I think I got way off track there, but that's
Nah, man, I'm all about tangents. Realistically, it's like I think about it, and we have the Facebook Live going, and I just think, oh yeah, shit, I forgot there was other people here. I'm just listening to you, man, selfishly. It's all good. Have you always had that curiosity, or is it more of a not newer, but more of a learned practice?
it's more learned.
Really?
100%. Yeah.
What were
To
you
be
like before you were curious?
I was more self-absorbed, man. I was too wrapped up in my own shit and still do. I still get wrapped up in my own shit. Like it's a constant sort of training and retraining of like just being able to, say, where am I coming from an energy perspective and such. And I don't love the like metaphysical shit. I've definitely veered towards more of like there is probably a science of behavior that we don't really know yet. Like I sort of touched on before, very Dr. Kashi like inspired. He definitely lit this kind of fire in me and got me interested in a bunch of different realms of just behavioral therapy and all kinds of stuff that's more oriented towards like action and less about metaphysics. But there's no denying that it's like there's something that I lack the intellect and vocabulary to describe. But it's like if I train over and over and over and just view everything as a skill, and in our profession, arguably the most important skill is what we're talking about, that like curious presence and like ability to just really want to understand. And also just knowing that we suck at communication generally, humans, because like we have different definitions for words. So it's like, well, what do you mean by that? And it's like genuine. And then they go, oh, because I would have thought something totally different. And yet that's where in the past I would have just said, oh, I know what he's talking about. Let's go in this direction. Here's this advice. And instead it's like, interesting. So I've had some clients who've used that phrase before, but I want to hear like, what does that mean to you? And then they go, and then they elaborate. And then I have a clearer vision of what they're actually feeling and going through. And it's a double win because they're going to be more bought in. Like me showing that genuine interest helps them kind of just, whether it's conscious or kind of behind the scenes, they're more bought into, yeah, Ry's actually there, he's actually listening. But that's a long-winded version of saying it was more learned for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I personally love your answers, and I love the summary at the end of it. It's a perfect tie-in. Oh, that's
Just
awesome.
looping it all in.
Yeah, yeah. It's like gonna go full circle. All
Yeah,
right.
I was like, I'm gonna tell you my life story, and then I'm gonna somehow tie it back to your question.
Oh shit! No, that's awesome. I love it. Yeah, I don't mind the elaborate one, but I absolutely agree that the engaging in curiosity. I think I've been a lot more inclined to do that as a intentional practice in the last 2 years, especially. And I walk a lot, so I try to veer towards, I'll listen to music obviously and podcast audiobooks, but I also try to just not listen to anything and just kind of let things flow to me so that I can just process things. I find that there's a lot of information coming at us and there's a lot of input, and we only have so much cognitive space. So I think it's very important to have an intentional practice to recycle that information to bring in new information. And
I like that.
one thing about like ain't too bad, hey? One thing about that's one thing with like in general, like as a whole, a societal kind of thing where I find or I observe that there is the expectation to know everything all at once, just like the movie, but without the time traveling or the multiple universes and stuff. But I
Until
think that
Elon puts the chips in our
yeah,
brains, and then we're good.
yeah, exactly. But I find that there's just that crazy expectation of just having to know everything. And
Yeah.
Kendra and I don't have a TV. We barely watch, like, we watch Netflix sparingly, and then we just like shoot the shit most of the time. And we just
Mm,
are we're consciously like regulating our information. And when
hmm.
we like hang around people, then we're also a lot, everything that I hear from other people is new to me.
Mm,
So it makes it easy to engage with curiosity because I just
yeah.
I haven't heard anything. It's like, oh, have you heard about this celebrity's thing? And I'm like, no. And if I'm
Yeah, yeah,
interested, then
yeah.
I'll just go to
Yeah.
YouTube, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So in saying that, what is a value of society that you have no value in?
Oh, that's a good question. That I have no value in. It's
And you can kind of
probably,
view that how you wish.
yeah, no, I hear you. I like that it's semi vague because it does help. Like I would say, as funny enough, it ties in with, maybe you incepted this with your example, but like it ties in with your example of just knowing about, a celebrity or something like that. Um, I definitely, and I have, it's like I guess I'd say this because it's something that I don't really, it's like I understand it. It's a human sort of piece of programming, and I have it in myself, this kind of just interest in, a celebrity type folk or something. Um, but when it just spirals, so like we're just, humans are so good at going to such extremes that I think that kind of, again, very natural human impulse is just like amplified by way of social media and
Mhm.
magazines and like websites and such, that it just it just makes all the stuff that we do with clients and do with ourselves that much more challenging. Even as
I
an
agree.
example, to you're like, you guys not having a TV, man, how easy is it to get hooked into a series? Like, bro, series
Yeah.
of shows these days are so good. There's such high production value and crazy good acting. It's like, no wonder. I mean, I don't have Netflix either for that reason, because I know that if I have Netflix, I'm going to watch Netflix. And then boom, there you go. There's like probably 8 hours out of my week that's just disappeared to
Totally.
something that I don't value, something that I don't want to be. What I get out of human connection is not like, oh, have you seen this show lately? It's like,
Mm,
what's interesting you these days? What are you reading? And maybe I'll play devil's advocate with myself. Maybe that's like just a form of self judgment, because I don't think that's a bad thing. And I don't want to seem like I'm kind of brand on my high horse. Like, no, what are you reading? But like, I get so much more value out of it than an intense, like an engaging show. I don't feel good after that. If I sit down and read for an hour, I feel amazing. And I want to talk to people about it. And I want to, like, to your point about walking, you're thinking about could I describe that? Could I explain that to someone? So I don't know if that answers your question.
no, I think that was good. It was, yeah, I like the part that I liked about the last little nugget there was, where was it? Where was it? Where was it?
Netflix,
There was Netflix. Yeah.
no TVs,
Oh,
reading.
it was what you get out of human connection is not through television shows.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think that was really cool. I really like that descriptor there. Man, that's a really good one. So what is it we were talking about psychology beforehand. You're
Hmm.
going into psychology, and
Hmm.
now I'm just going to ask you about it. So what drove you to, or what inspired you to pursue that?
Um, it's I'll keep it concise, and it's ultimately the to help someone with their nutrition is pretty straightforward. With their nutrition and lifestyle, pretty straightforward. We know the blueprint, so to speak. Um, the big challenge is helping people integrate that, and in a way that fits their lifestyle, and understanding the nuance of human behavior. And human behavior is arguably just driven primarily by way of cognition, right? The way that we're thinking, whether it's at the level of, like, you know, to use Danny Kahneman's whole system 1, system 2, like there's some form of cognition occurring, even if it's like below the level of consciousness or whatever. So it's just that, man. It's just this, like, I've rediscovered this love of learning. And I thought I was dumb for my whole life. I thought I was super dumb. I was kind of the dumb one in my family. I didn't like playing games with my family because I felt dumb, and I created my own aversion towards learning dense subjects that I didn't click with right away. It would be like, oh, I'm stupid. This isn't for me. So get away from this, move as far away as I can. So I did post-secondary, but it was just more to get the piece of paper so that I could get the job. And then it wasn't until I was like 30 that I started getting into coaching. And then I started, working for Dr. K, and Dr. K was like a pivotal turning point, like a very, very important mentor in my adult life, who started to get me thinking in different ways and challenged me. And I just gobbled up so much of that information and wisdom that he instilled, and was so fortunate to spend like intimate time with him, on coaches retreats and such, and have pretty incredible conversations. You know him, like he's just someone where you have one conversation with him directly, and you're like, then you have other conversations and you're like, what the hell would he think in this situation? Like, he's that next level with his way of looking at things. And so I just viewed everything I started to view everything as a developable, like a skill that could be developed. And then I started even combining that with my own meditative practice. Like, I'd meditated for years, still do. And then I kind of like meshed those two with like Dr. K's sciencey, like hard science approach. And then the perhaps untapped level of just awareness, or what one might call mindfulness, that I had acquired through years of meditation. And then I was able to be like, to sit in that and be like, I'm reading this sciencey jargon paper, and I'm just like noticing my thoughts gravitate towards, oh, I must be dumb because I can't understand this, and I need to read this one sentence like 5 times in order to have a general idea of what they're trying to say. So yeah, it was just this like gradual sort of buildup that really came to the surface, within the last couple of years. And now I'm just like eager to learn. I got rediscovered this love for learning, and now I go towards the shit that confuses me initially, because there's nothing more fulfilling than, I'll say it's very fulfilling to persist through that initial resistance and then actually understand it,
Nice. That was a good line. That was really good. I like that one. Ah, shit. Nice, clear, concise. Oh, that was beautiful. So now I'm very intrigued by your meditation practice, because you mentioned earlier where it was more of the science based. So wouldn't meditation, or I guess mindfulness, I guess it could be viewed as a esoteric practice. So what I'm viewing is your meditation practice, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I want to know what your private meditation practice is. But it seems like it has that creative side and the logical side where that's the focus. Where the creative side, I think that's where the kind of out there ideas, the things that we can create and manifest into reality. Like everything that we see around us was created once in the mind and once in real life. And so when you said that you have the practice, like the mindfulness practice, based off of Dr. K's stuff. How is it that you combine those two? What's your practice on that one? Might try it out.
Oh, I don't think I'd have a very like good answer for that, because I can't say that I've created this, this new formula with combining the two. What I mean more is that, and Dr. K and I talked about this, like he's not one who's meditated, and I think a lot of hard scientists are not, right? Or maybe just people who are wired a certain way are not. And really, like, the way that I view what makes me me right now and you is just like a series of learned behaviors combined with like genetic predisposition. So you just had, a certain set of like triggerable genetics factors, and then you just went through life and you had a bunch of different learning experiences, which continues to this day. So just shapes who you are. And then we tend to like create stories about, here's why I do this and here's why I do this. And it's probably, a lot of it's probably bullshit, right? It's like our brain seeking it's our brain seeking congruence and being like, this is why I do this, because if I can't explain why I do this, then it creates that cognitive dissonance that's quite uncomfortable. And so that's actually a fun like side note. I love saying that now. It's like, why do you do this? And I'm like, oh, you know what? I could probably tell you a story, an elaborate story that would make sense, but it's mostly bullshit. Like, really, it's just a series of learned reinforcements throughout my life there's way too many variables at play for me to be able to say conclusively, this is what caused me to choose this behavior now. I digress. The meditation and the hard science is basically just, I use an app. I use Sam Harris's Waking Up app, and I've used it since it came out in 2018. It's an incredible app, and arguably it's like the most amount of wisdom in one place. It's amazing. I could not advocate for this app enough, because it's not just meditation, it's philosophy, it's practical things like time management and stoicism. And it's like he's taken the absolute creme de la creme as far as knowledgeable experts in those respective fields and got them to create like very structured, easy to digest, sound clips and sort of structured programs. It's a bargain of a deal. So I use that, and I think just it was more like Dr. K's kind of harder science of behavior that helped me just look at things like, again, everything is this skill. You can just develop things, and if you suck at something initially, well, there's definitely ways that you can get better at it, so and then I had years of like, maybe that, like I said, untapped mindfulness to be able to apply that slight tweak in the way that I thought about it. It was like the framework from Dr. K that helped me really use that stillness that I had created, because I was a very angry, emotionally tumultuous adolescent and young adult. And so I like gravitated towards mindfulness and meditation, because I had seen so much anecdotal evidence of like it helping people, and it really helped me in the first 30 days, and I just kept on with it. So yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but it's more of like the sort of framing of it, and then the actual practice of just normal meditation, so to speak.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really good. So you mentioned Stoic philosophy. Do you have any other kind of philosophies, philosophers, or kind of philosophical inspirations that I shouldn't have even went with the inspirations part, but what are your philosophical inspirations?
Great question. Definitely, like stoicism's definitely up there, you know. I wouldn't say that I have any one philosophical foundation,
Mm,
but I like to just steal from everywhere. And
same.
yeah, and honestly, this is where again heavily Dr. K influence, but like I'm such, whether this is considered philosophical or not, I'm just such a believer in the scientific method. To me, it's just like this, the essence of the scientific method is so pure in my brain, because it just by definition is like nothing's proven until we're just like, it's just this, there's no there's zero room for dogmatic thinking, zero. And so it's just this like, it's almost this
It's
like
unique.
yeah, it's just this alleviation of like, imagine the fucking,
Mm.
not to hone in on, I hope this doesn't offend anybody in your audience, but it's like the weight that some humans must feel having bought into some very not rigid, but like just philosophical, let's call them worldviews,
Mhm.
right? If you buy into a worldview and it has some pretty like clear boundaries, you start to structure your life around that, your friend group, the way that you behave, like conduct in the world. And so when evidence comes out, or if things change that contradict that worldview, or starts to infringe upon those boundaries, man, that's pretty scary. It's like, and obviously that's where, to me, from an outside perspective, it's like, well, no wonder why wars happen and like people get so, they just double down, and then violence occurs, because it's like literally them just fighting for everything that they've structured their lives around. And the scientific method doesn't allow for that. It's like, if you are rooted in that sort of thinking, it's like, this is what we know now based on the evidence that we've accumulated, but it's open to change. So more evidence may come. And it kind of comes full circle with what we were talking about before, with like the influencers who can tap into certain things that just end up confusing the masses, because it's a sexier message that is simpler and easier to consume. But the real reality, the actual reality is like this nuanced kind of, well, this is what it might mean, this is what this probably means, but it's based off this. We need to study these potential third variables, and like this one study or even this meta-analysis doesn't necessarily mean this is it for sure. It's like, it's this ever evolving sort of methodology, which I just like to apply to my life, really.
Which is also good because then you get to you got to engage in your curiosity in order to change it or to accept that change.
Bingo, man.
Because if you're
Bingo.
not, yeah, if you're not willing to try some variation of change, or if it's too, yeah, if you're, I think, engaging in curiosity is very important. I made a post, which is like, I love alliterations. That's why I post so many alliterations. It's just for myself. But
Mhm. Helps you remember or what?
yeah, yeah.
Nice. Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's I think it was clarity curates curiosity, or curiosity curates clarity,
Mm.
where I think it kind of goes both. Then that's kind of cool. But
Yeah.
when you're thinking of it, it's that curiosity that you get to engage in that, and then if you're curating that curiosity, then you're getting to develop and grow. And then a part of just that learning, to which I actually viewed myself as a dumb person for a majority of my life. Like, I did tutoring forever. I was held back like 2 years in elementary.
Mm. Hmm.
What else? Sylvan Learning Center. Oh yeah. I was there. I barely passed high school. However, I did have my apprenticeship hours for culinary arts already done before I was done high school. So I could very evidently see where my particular skills were best suited. It was a very,
Right.
it was a very evident 3-year litmus test.
Yeah, yeah.
uh, but yeah, I guess if you don't have that engage, or if you don't engage in that curiosity, if you're not, whether it's with another person or even internally, then you don't get that opportunity to see what could be better, because it takes curiosity to see what's better. It doesn't take curiosity to be fearful.
It's a great point, man. It's like what you said earlier about that other podcast guest, where she was like, after, like, wow, that your questions help me clarify things. And I found the same, having been on a couple other podcasts. It's like, just good questions, man. We've all heard that cliche, you know, the something along the lines of like, the biggest determinant of your success is the quality of your questions.
Nice.
Usually cliches can be pretty you can poke holes in them fairly easily, but like, it's true, man. Being able to ask those difficult questions, it does definitely curate clarity. You're able to be like, oh yeah, that's not really what I'm after. That's not what I want to do. Or it's a beautiful thing, man. So yeah, curiosity is just like a foundational value is huge.
I like that. That's good. I like that you title it as a value. And I totally agree with you. I think it's a value as well. So you mentioned that you read rather than Netflix more often than not, right?
Mhm.
So do you purposely do it? Do you just kind of have it integrated into your day?
My reading,
Mm,
you know what, I'd like to be a lot better with kind of more of a structured schedule around it. But yeah, I pretty much read every day, at least in the evening. um but yeah, generally towards my weeks are kind of front loaded. Like, I have really busy
nice.
early weeks, Monday, Tuesdays, and then I have all my client check-ins done, and then just a few like client calls and such, and content creation. So that gives me more time and flexibility. It really depends, but yeah, like, I have my reading chair right here with a nice
Nice.
little light, and it depends on what I'm interested in at that point. And some weeks it's different. Some weeks it's just like, like I said, I've had that client call, and then it gets me thinking about something that would help them, or something that would improve my delivery of service. And that can just be a whole other rabbit hole of like reading in terms of how I can bring that to fruition, so to speak. How do you approach that? Do you have like days that you just schedule reading days or something?
Well, I do a majority of my reading via audiobook if I'm walking so much.
Gotcha. Yeah.
However, I might do one that's kind of intentional, because whenever I'm going for a walk, it's either going to be a podcast or an audiobook. I'll kind of flip flop, or music
Hmm.
if I'm like really wound up, then I'll just like listen to some tunes. But I think I'll probably, because I was thinking about this today, and a book that I talk about all the time on this damn podcast. Like, I should just have it in the link of every episode. But it's The Creative Act, uh, The Art of Being by Rick Rubin.
Ah,
And I think you would like it very much. It has a cool combination of just like, you'd be able to catch so much psychology, behavioral sciences, uh, a little bit of more of the spirituality kind of component. And it's just thinking of creativity just in whatever, in the sense of the creative. Like, it takes
hmm.
creativity to solve problems.
Right.
Creativity flourishes in times of dissatisfaction, because anytime that we are dissatisfied with something, we need creativity in order to resolve the problem. Think
Right.
of, like, we have jackets that have little heat lamps in them, not heat lamps, but heat thingies, right? That's a resolution to a dissatisfaction. That's a pretty damn creative idea. But what was I gonna say? But I might actually make that audiobook more of a focal point, and have it
Mm,
where it's 18 minutes in the morning where I kind of listen to it, because I find that I really get my thoughts going, because he's going from an objective kind of how we're talking about curiosity as a skill, as a way of engaging, as a way of going about and having deeper connections with individuals. He talked about creativity from a way that's like much more 30,000 foot view, but I believe everyone could very much relate to, because in some way someone's a creative, right? And I also honestly 18 minutes in the morning, there's a reason for it. It was I don't think it's Malcolm Gladwell, but it was the 100 hour rule or something like that. And by the end of 100 hours, which by the year, or by the end of the year, 100 hours by the end of the year, which is 18 minutes per day, you end up in the top 95th percentile of that particular skill or absorption, or to get mediocre at the thing you're studying.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of like, I made a ton of posts that were very much inspired by the audiobook. So I think I'll have that just to kind of set the foundation for my day, because I always feel like I'm much more present after listening to it. So kind of like that kind of style. But it's not just the knowledge, it's also the positive feedback I get from the rest of my day
as a result of doing that behavior in the morning, right?
Totally. I listened to it before this, and I was like, I have a question here, and it's going to be a really cool one. I think it's going to be neat because of how you also went along with the going with this more talking about the science aspect of things. So, this is a question I thought of when I was out for my walk. I'm like, a question for Ry. So I got a good one. You ready for this one?
I'm ready. Lay it on me.
So and it has to do with books.
Okay.
So I warmed you up with the book question. Yeah.
Yes.
If there was some sort of catastrophe that basically wiped out about 78% of the human race, all the books that ever existed were demolished, and the only book to survive became the religion due to its knowledge, what would the paperback you would choose be? And no existing spiritual practices can be included.
Okay, wait. I want to understand. 78% is a very specific number, by the way. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think most people would think like 75 or 80. I'm like,
there's 22% of the population remaining.
Yeah.
Okay,
and the book you choose is the new religion.
The book. Oh, so it's not the book that I choose is the new religion, and it doesn't have to be a religious book.
Correct.
Okay.
Preferably not a religious book.
Right. Damn, bro. That's a great question.
Pondering myself as well.
Yeah. This is a book that I haven't revisited. Now, in this thought experiment the remaining population has all the sort of like existing knowledge.
Let's say it's a blank slate.
Oh, it's a blank slate.
Yeah, let's go blank slate, because I'll just make it a little bit simpler, I think.
Okay, gotcha.
Or it might put more pressure on the book, but basically everyone will run their lives based off of this book.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know.
That's wild.
When I first thought of this question, I wasn't thinking, oh yeah, we're gonna have freaking layers on this one. But it makes sense. Look, in hindsight, yeah, it makes sense.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. There you go.
Yeah. Me to be a misfit.
Exactly. Even red nose and all. Okay, so I would say, man, that's tough, because so much of what I read is like nonfiction. Not that doesn't change the question really, but like it's just so specific to. It's not really. So much of what I read lately is not as kind of broad reaching. It's not like this generally. It's more specific to a specific thing. Getting more granular. So it makes me really think. I'll tell you straight up, like, a book that really transformed my thinking probably like 8 to 10 years ago was The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I don't know how I would process that same book now, because my thinking is very much changed, right? And I have a lot more skepticism towards some of the more metaphysical, spiritual stuff, even though I do consider I meditate every day. Like I consider myself what most would define as fairly spiritual. There's plenty of things that science can admit we can't sort of explain, right? Anyways,
Ghosts.
that's like the main book that stands out from more of just you couldn't really go wrong, but yeah, I mean, just anything kind of in that more. Yeah, man, I'd have to think about that. What would
That's a
yours
tough
be?
one.
Yeah,
I chose not to think about it until I asked you, because I thought that would be,
nice.
yeah, I didn't want to come into that kind of a question prepared.
Yeah,
So okay. I too am struggling with this question. And it's a tough one, man. I think meditations, Marcus Aurelius.
great one, man.
Yeah.
Great one.
I think
Yeah,
that one's my safe bet. That's me being safe for
yeah.
sure.
No, that's an amazing one. Absolutely. What a crazy, like, that meditate, that it's just what it's mind blowing to me that sort of yeah, man, when you read meditations and you think about the context of the position of power that he had and what he could have gotten away with, like
Crazy.
the lack of just moral corruption that he embodied was it's just mind-blowing. And during that time too, it's just crazy. It's crazy.
And he was warring most of that too. And a plague, and he went into debt and sold
Yeah,
most of the palace's stuff. And something I love about meditations is because they're his meditations, they're his thoughts to himself. And I think that
yeah, exactly.
I think understanding that those were his thoughts and 2000-ish years ago, and
Hmm.
they're resonating with us today. That
Yeah.
just goes to show that this one person who was the most powerful person on the planet at that point in time,
Hmm.
he had to temper himself. He had to like check himself before he wrecked himself. And that was the way he did that.
Little he was like the modern day Ice Cube,
Yeah,
you
exactly.
know.
But it's crazy. I think
It
something
is crazy, man.
from like a sciencey kind of observation lens kind of thing.
Hmm.
I think the fact that like that lasted, or it's lasting so long, that we are learning so much from like the philosophers from back in the day, that
Yeah.
it's just crazy, where that is just well, it's just like I believe it was Arthur Ellis, something,
Albert.
Albert Ellis, thank you. He
Hmm.
introduced cognitive behavioral therapy into the world of psychiatry, and cognitive behavioral therapy is just, in my mind, to my understanding, if I'm wrong, let me know, but it is a integration of Stoic philosophy into the practice.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, no, I mean, his story is one of the most fascinating. His, like, guy was a psychotherapist for years, started off with CBT and then went back to more psychotherapy related approach to it, and then was like kind of disgruntled with the lack of progression in his clients, and then created rational emotive behavior therapy, and then just, yeah, I agree, it is very, there's a lot of stoicism in it for sure, tons.
Is there a difference between rational and emotive? What was it again? Not
Rational emotive behavioral therapy,
behavioral
that's
therapy.
what Albert Ellis created. And I think, yeah, it's, who knows, like, I think Anthony Beck may be the guy who's coined as the creator of CBT.
Mm.
But there's so much overlap, and again, Dr. K hugely got me involved or aware of Albert Ellis, and I've since devoured some of his audiobooks, and he's got old, like, clips of live therapy that he did on, like, it's on YouTube, it's like in black and white,
That's
because
cool.
Yeah, this is like in the 70s or some shit. But yeah, he was pretty astounding guy who just believes firmly in like identifying demands, underlying demands. And that continues to be one of the most pivotal things in my own life. If I'm upset, it's like, is there an underlying demand here? Am I demanding something of myself, of others, or of the world? It's like, this should be easier. I need to perform to a certain level to earn the respect of others, or they need to treat me the way that I demand they do, or else they're a rotten person. Like, you can sort of like put these tangible, okay, what am I demanding here? And then if you can write it out, it's like this tangible sort of thing that you can go, well, there's obviously no evidence for this. Like, there's no, where is it written that I should be doing better than I am? Where is that written? Where's the omniscient being who's saying this is where you should be? It's like, it doesn't exist. So it helps orient towards like evidence. And Albert Ellis was quite a like pioneer, in the sense that he was like, it was philosophy, a lot of it Stoic, combined with like, at that time, modern day psychotherapy and science, which those two were quite divided, and still arguably are to some degree. But like, he really kind of bridged all those. And yeah, man, it's wild.
And then implemented the overlaps.
Exactly. Yeah,
I
totally.
think it's good. I think that engaging in curiosity, going back to the curiosity part, because I think it's a cool combo. Engaging in the curiosity, I think, is really cool in a way where you get to find those overlaps rather than just acknowledge things as absolutes.
Big time, man.
So
Well
it's
said.
like you're looking at the absolutes, like, oh, I don't want to try that because of this reason, and it could be whatever, right?
Yeah.
Rather than being like, oh, maybe there is one thing that I can take and then scratch out the rest. And I forget, who was it? It was clean off the meat and throw out the bone. Oh yeah, right. Chris Maxwell, his mentor, Joe Marcoux, said, take the meat, throw out the bone kind of idea, where you just take the stuff that's useful, which a bone is useful. You can turn into bone broth and stuff, but you can take the meat.
Who's got time for that?
Yeah,
bone
exactly.
Yeah. Give me the meat.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you just take the components that perk your curiosity in whatever that could be. So if I've usually veer towards a practice of self-betterment, self-improvement, or just kind of learning skills, just because I think it's fun to learn skills. And I don't put a lot of pressure on myself to be really, really freaking good. So it makes for simpler progression and skill acquisition. But
Big time.
yeah, engaging in that curiosity allows us to be able to take the pieces of things that improve our well-being in our life and maybe our mental and physical fitness. And then we actually just get to negate all the other stuff by choice. But by thinking of things in absolutes, we don't have a choice. We're just always going to suck.
Yeah.
Or I would always suck.
Dude. Oh man. Yeah. That resonates big time, because that's the absolute stuff. That's probably another very key principle of like what I try and notice in myself and with clients. Do they give things labels, and are they thinking binarily? Is it like this or this? When in reality, there's just this whole, we can remove the labeling. It's like, oh, I suck at this. And I use language like that sometimes in content, just for like, because you try and use the language. It's like towing that line between what's going to resonate with people who you can help, and then drawing them in and then helping them start to unpack that stuff. But like in my own life, just anecdotally, one of the most transformational things is the removal of anything that I cannot give a universally agreed upon truth. So if I use a label like good, bad, suck, big, small, who the fuck knows? Like that means different things to everybody. It's like,
Totally.
you know what I mean? So instead, Dr. K used to always say, stick to the fucking facts, man. Like, how can you describe it? And it's a super taxing, cognitively taxing endeavor in the beginning. And when I was so fortunate enough to have those kinds of conversations with him, and then like go into the rest of my everyday life and start to audit my own language use, and then here, converse with people who I have relationships with, and then they say things that I'm it's like trying to translate, and it's this very arduous and like frustrating process, because we so habitually just describe things. Screw this, thing sucks, that thing's awesome, I suck, oh, now tomorrow I'm awesome. Like instead you're like, well, wait a minute here, what's actually happening? What universal truths can I describe instead of explaining I did this because I suck or I was scared? It's like, no, what can I actually describe that everybody could agree upon, and that is this interesting thing, and also beautiful opportunity, because your entire day exists of opportunities to literally transform the way that you think, because the way that you speak, you end up thinking with those terms, and then it comes right back full circle with the beliefs aspect that we talked about, right? So it's like, I suck at this turns into, I'm currently performing below the level that I would like to perform at in this certain thing. And like, of those two, what gives you a fighting chance of like developing skills to improve? Well, the I suck thing is just like, oh, that therefore I'm a sucky person and I might as well go die in a hole. Like, so fuck, man. It's like I get so fired up about it because I used to just upset myself all day, every day.
I was actually just gonna ask. I was gonna ask what would you be able to describe? Because I'll go with where my thinking was going with this one. I can resonate with that very much so, because I used to not make the best decisions perpetually, and then started thinking about it and going through the same process of just having that self-awareness and actually asking, okay, is this constructive or destructive? Is this, I've actually started coining it as, is this a functioning opinion or a non-functioning opinion? And so that's been very helpful for my categorizing.
Yes.
Because I still want to use categorizing because it's just easier for the brain to organize.
For sure.
But when I've been using those as a cue, I've been finding that I've put a lot less pressure on a lot of things going on. So for example, like it could be one part practice, but one part like just being really intentional about it. But it's I get the same sensations from starting a podcast as I did the first one, which is still Leah, who I had on a podcast. She said it awesome. She says it's not anxiety, it's anxiety. So it's excitement, anxiety. And I freaking love that, because fear and excitement, anxiety and excitement have the same physiological responses. The only variable that's different is the story that we associate with it. So I would say that I was still nervous to hop on the podcast, but I'm also much more excited about it because I get to engage in curiosity.
The framing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I found the way that I I'll ask you the question. When you went from that experience where you were just being an asshole to yourself, I think it'd probably be a pretty safe way of putting it. Can you describe the mental clarity or the changes, or like something where it's just like, was there a moment while you were learning where everything just kind of clicked and you're like, whoa, like you're looking around the world and it feels however your brain can feel it, but it feels different? Would you be able to describe that if that happened or anything like that?
I think it was more gradual, and there was a few moments where I had that holy shit moment of reflection, because I could just see that the frequency of my upsetness had just fallen off a cliff. And it still happens, of course, I'm human. But it's just like the capacity to avoid fueling that fire or amplify those distortions is a superpower. I was a very angry kid. I was an angry kid and an angry young adult. Like, I just had bad anger, and it was always towards myself, always. And it just, some of these, like, blind rage is all I can describe it as. Get even kind of emotional thinking about it. Like, it wrecked my life. It was just this, like, very glaring sort of stain upon my existence. And that's what got me into meditation. And then again, with that, all that I described, with kind of the combining of that with the incredible lessons that I learned from Dr. K, and just the whole breadth of, like, reading that he got me into as a result of that. Yeah, the short answer is I don't remember any specific moment. I just remember this, like, steady persistence and a newfound level of persistence with things that I otherwise would have, like, created such an internal aversion towards, such internal resistance towards, that I would have just ran in the other direction. And this allowed me to just gradually start chipping away at things, which I still continue to chip away and always will. And so there was just been many moments since where I'm like, wow, man, like, I'm able to be so proud of myself. I'm like, I can be you can be the fucking leader, man, in your own life and in your loved ones' lives, and also have that sort of, like, vulnerability to be like, this is where I still struggle. And also to have that self-compassion, or whatever you want to call it, to be like, I'm so proud of myself for doing the things that I've done, because all that stuff is scary. Doing a podcast is scary. Being on film is scary. Putting yourself out there is scary. Having someone pay you good money to, like, help them in their journey is scary. Starting a business, like, for some, fuck, man, conversing with a stranger is scary. Like, it's all, there's just a whole spectrum. So it's like, those the little bits of successive approximation or baby steps towards your goals is such a, it's such a, like, a beautiful aspect of life that I think many people sadly are unfortunate enough to not even discover. And I know that I would have been that person. I'm pretty confident that had I not had exposure to this kind of stuff, I might have been just lived my life as, like, this angry sort of mildly fulfilled person who lived well below their potential.
What would you, so knowing with, especially that was such a fantastic share. Thank you very much for sharing your story on that one. If you were to go
My
back in
pleasure.
time and you were to say to your younger self in the most compassionate way possible, what advice would you give that young Ry?
Oh man, I would say
It wouldn't affect your future at all. It would just be completely by itself.
okay, I would
No
say
alternate timelines.
yeah, I'm gonna base it off of reasonable evidence of, like, no, I'll just say this. It's at the end of their lives, people don't regret what they did. They regret more so what they didn't do. So that would be piece that I would give my young self, because I, again, was very restricted for many years, and I know, even I hope to just continue this progression, and 10 years from now there'll be things that I'm scared to do right now that I'll be doing, that my 46-year-old self will be like, do this, but I can see we're moving in that direction. We're facing that kind of challenge. So it'd be like, people tend to more so regret what they did not do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that ties into the final two questions actually as well. So this is a good little flow. All right.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. Oh, this is like whole last chunk is getting super heavy, man. Damn.
Saucy, man.
Yeah, saucy. So yeah, so the first one is pretty simple, but before I get into that, I just want to say thank you very much for coming on to the podcast, my man. You are a fantastic fellow. I've really been enjoying your content. Your post is really fun. And yeah, you're a good fellow. You're well-intentioned. I think you got some really good vibes. Otherwise, I wouldn't want to chat with you. And I just appreciate you being here. I appreciate that I had you as a coach for a period of time. It was fantastic. It was a good experience. You're a very good coach. I will say that.
Thanks,
you're a very
brother.
good coach, my man.
I appreciate that, man. Thanks for having me on. It's been a
My
pleasure.
So the final two questions. First one, set in context. You're on your deathbed. There's
Yes.
one piece of advice that you can pass on to the people around you. What will that piece of advice be?
The same one.
I figured it would be. That last one was so good. Could you riff on it a little bit?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked for that, because I was thinking, like, how could I make that better? Yeah, it's just like ultimate, and it kind of does, because people, when older people are, actually, no, that's not true. What I looked into this at some point was like, what do old people regret? Like, what do they regret? A lot of them regret worrying so much. But then you fall into the trap of being like, well, fuck, man. You just tell people, don't worry so much. It's like, I don't know. Obviously, my brain wants to have this like crazy profound wisdom to instill. I find it so challenging to have universally applicable advice. And I think that sometimes I see influencers and such try and do that, and it's like, there's just so much nuance. So it's obviously all contextual to me, but yeah, I'd be like, find ways to worry less, find ways to just like accept whatever outcome. But I guess it kind of ties in with what I was saying, because usually it's worries and fear that restricts people from doing stuff. And again, people less so regret the things they did than the things they didn't do. At least to my knowledge. I don't know. I'll probably be on my deathbed and be like, wow, that was really stupid. I'll watch a recording of this and be like, fuck, I didn't know anything.
Yeah. You're like,
so
now that
dumb.
I'm actually on my deathbed, I'm really thinking about it. That was just a shit answer.
Yeah, that was terrible. Eat more ice cream might be I'll be like riddled with Alzheimer's, very, very like severe dementia. It'll be eat more ice cream, something like that.
Fair enough. I think that's also great advice too. That's awesome. I personally think that advice was fantastic, and I think it could very well resonate with a lot of folks. I definitely think so. So I think it was fantastic, because we can think of it as a way of we are an accumulation of the regrets that we are okay with living with. That's kind of
I like that.
Kind of similar way, I suppose.
Yeah. What would yours be? You've asked that question a bunch. Do you have one?
Yeah,
in the barrel, ready to go.
You know what? I actually don't. So this is my first time actually being asked this question. Okay, what's my own question? So if I'm on my deathbed.
You're on your deathbed,
and I have one piece of advice I can pass on.
Yeah.
Man, Ry, you're the first person to ask me this. Oh, shit.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah. It's so tough, right? Because
It
it's like
is.
you want it to be impactful, but then you think about just everybody. The language thing is tough because people translate things so differently.
I
So it's
think I,
hard to have that.
I think,
You got one?
yeah, I think so. Um, Stop trying to, or stop pretending to be important. Start pretending to be good.
Mm, I like it.
I think that's
Stop
what,
pretending to be important. Nice. Start pretending to be good. I like it, dude.
yeah, that's a good one. I'm gonna write down my own freaking quote, man.
Knowledge bomb.
Yeah, knowledge bomb.
Add some audio in there. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I have this idea where, because a buddy of mine asked once, like, do you think there's any meaning to life? And I go from like a big I like going from micro to macro, and I think that life is both meaningful and meaningless at the same time. It's
Mhm.
meaningless because of how finite we are, and we don't really have much of a contribution to the universe as a whole. However, it is meaningful because we get to experience this finite amount of time, and we get to observe the environment around us in a way that spontaneous creatures that began at the point of time get to by fluke be here. 400 trillion to 1 is the odds of a human being existing.
Mm.
So I think, yeah. So I think it's like people pretend to be so important, but I don't
Yeah, yeah,
think, I think for myself, I'm not an important person. I'm just an average guy trying to do cool shit.
yeah. I love
and
it,
then
man.
and then if we're pretending to be good, everyone knows the idea of how everyone has like a sort of amalgamation of what they believe to be a good person, which is good because we're going to tie it into the last question too.
Hmm.
But when we think about it, but we don't act in congruence. So it could be something simple, or if I think of, or if I recognize something and then I walk by it and then I feel like, oh, fuck, then I'll just give into my desire to just do something good, because I do have a desire to do things good. Sometimes I'll just like I'll litter a little bit here. I'll admit it. I'm not perfect. No way at all. But I'm more mindful of it. And where I can logically justify me taking the time to put in the effort to do whatever that particular action of a good person would be, then I think I kind of convince myself into doing it, because it hits all the, I can't fight the logic.
Right, right.
So yeah, I think that's yeah, pretending to be good. And then that's all we're doing, is we're just a bunch of actors, and we're just partaking in this big play. And we
Yeah.
just, we very, not enough folks, in my opinion, are choosing to act out the role that they wish to play. They'd rather
Mm.
just play a supporting cast or a supporting role in this video game of life.
Video game. In
Yeah,
the
man.
Matrix.
Yeah.
Which pill will we take? Give me
Honestly,
both, the
it's
blue and the
so,
red.
I think I watched a YouTube video as to what would happen, and I don't actually know fully. But there was a time that I was actually at a birthday, my
Hmm.
buddy Kalen's birthday, Steve's birthday too. And
Shout out to Steve and Kalen.
yeah, exactly. And there is my friend Rich, who I was telling you about earlier, who's
Yep.
basically the MC of anything.
Yeah, yeah.
And him and his wife, uh, when we were talking about matrixy kind of stuff and just like trippy stuff, like we were just like chillaxing, shooting the shit. And they were the first people that were kind of like, blue pill all the way, baby, blue pill all the way. But it's, and when you watch them, they're very present with each other. They're present in the area. They're enjoying their life as a whole. And I
Hmm.
know them, and they do that intentionally. Like it's not by accident that they are living the life that they want. So I think it's interesting
Hmm.
how a lot of people want to escape the matrix, while I think that we have a huge impact where we are each the one in our own way.
Mm. I
Yeah,
like the framing, man.
it's a
No,
little,
yeah. It's that's the thing that makes the advice piece so difficult, because there's so much there to like unpack, and it means it's like what works for one person can be just ineffective for another. So that's the fascinating aspect of just even human language and such. And I'm, again, like I said earlier, like I lack the intellect at this point to like be able to, you know, really unravel those layers, because I poke holes in my own sort of framing
Yeah.
that works. Like I'll be like, this resonates with me, but then I'll be like, yet I can see how it wouldn't land with another person because it's vague in this regard or something. So
Totally.
it's just like, but that's the beauty of humans. Love stories, right? Stories, and just the sort of like that resonates with me. And that's also a cool aspect of what we do, because you can like, you can put forth those sorts of thoughts that have worked for you, and then like other yous who are where you were 5 years ago are like, ooh, fuck, this guy said some shit on his content that like it just clicked in my brain. I love that movie or whatever. And then he's like reaching out to you and be like, dude, let's talk about getting ripped.
Yeah. That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
And then, right, the final question.
Ooh, drum roll.
Drum roll. Yeah, the final question is the best version of you, the higher self, the most self-actualized, who you envision to be the unreal most level 100 version of Ry. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That Ry comes along and sits next to you and wants to give you a piece of advice for this season of your life. What is that piece of advice?
Probably just go towards your fears. Yeah, that'd be
Nice.
it. Go towards your fears. So I had a lot of them. I've had my adult life just kind of governed by fear, and with awareness of that comes inherent change. And then and that's like, it's almost like newbie gains in the gym. You know, you can like make some gains with regards to your behavior with the newfound awareness of those fears, rather than goal setting. You're like, what am I scared of right now? What am I scared of in life? What tends to, and then you start to realize, holy shit, so much of my day, so much of my behavior is actually governed by like this sort of looming fear of failure, of rejection, of judgment, of mostly to do with like social aspects of being human. And then you get those newbie gains, and then you got to be really intentional with pushing past those and structuring your life in a way where you're like, well, damn it, I know that if this is important to me, just like if I were to want to get better at shooting a basketball, I got to like maybe learn some theory, but mostly shoot some basketballs. So like, how do I structure my life day to day in a way that helps me chip away at that, knowing that it's a process? So yeah, I think that's what he would say, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
I dig it. I dig it.
What would Kyle 2.0 say? You knew I was gonna
Yeah,
reverse that
I
on
know. Oh, I only have two finishing questions. There's no way
Yeah.
in hell 50% of those questions is not going to be asked to me. What would mine be? Um, you know what? I think I've kind of pondered this one before a couple times, but the advice that the best version of me would actually say if he popped up and was like, "Hey, Kyle, man, I got one piece of advice for you." And I'd be like, "What's up? What's up?"
What's up,
And
bro?
it would be maintain the speed wobble.
What does that mean?
So the maintain the speed wobble has been my kind of mantra of that Goldilocks zone between difficult and easy,
Oh, the speed wobble. That's hilarious.
right? Because you're going
Yeah.
fast, so you're getting the
Yeah.
speed,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
more often than not, anytime I've speed wobbled, I've biffed it real hard. But I've
same.
seen YouTube videos of like wins and stuff where people are maintaining a speed wobble somehow. And I'm like, wow, but they're still moving. So they're moving at max capacity of the bike, for example, but
Yeah.
they're also like maintaining control somehow. And
Yeah.
that combination where it's order and chaos at the same time, like there's a beautiful balance at that moment. And so when you're maintaining the speed wobble in life, it's just, okay, so I'm actually capable of handling this amount. Okay, how much more could I handle? So I'm just making sure I have all the systems organized so that I'm more effective with my time and my strategies and activities. So I'm much more intentional. But it's scary as fuck because at any point, like anything can like just shit the bed. So I'm just been very intentional and been very focused and structured, but still enjoying everything else around. So I'm embodying the chaos and the order. I'm aiming to embody the structure and looseness, like a balance between those. And it's been interesting. It's been interesting. So maintaining the speed wall, I know where this trajectory is going to take me. I have no doubts of what I can envision in the future. Like I can see the future. It's just maintaining the speed wall so that I don't move. I move at a pace where I can say, okay, I'm definitely making progress, but also not so much where I'm just going to biff it and fall on my face.
Love that, dude. I'll tell you this, man. I obviously have minimal context with regards to, as we both do. It's like we've communicated a bit, but we really just sort of see each other's social media. But like you said, like we go back, maybe a couple of years when you started at TKN, and I'm inspired by your persistence, and just I see what you do online, and I have zero doubt what you just said. I know that you've got that. It's evident that you have that clear vision, and you're not going to stop until you get that, because I see you just consistently leveling up and doing more. Like every time I look at your page or see a post from you, it's just like incrementally better, and just I can see you're on a mission, so to speak, to come full circle with what I said before we even started recording. But I believe in you, bro.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I think you're doing fantastic too, brother. I appreciate
Thank
it
you
a ton.
kindly. Thanks
So
for having me on. That
yeah,
was
for
fun,
sure.
man.
Absolutely. Now I got a nice little outro. And folks, that's what I got for you for today's episode. Ryan, my friend, where can people find you?
Instagram is coach_Ry Hickey, RYHICKEY. That's probably the
Beautiful.
best spot. Yeah.
Excellent. And if you love today's episode, folks, please do me a favor right now. Share it on your Instagram stories and tag me with my handle at WarriorBodyKyle and coach at coach_Ry Hickey. That is one of the ways that we grow. And until next time, I hope your day treats you as good as you look.
Yeah. I like it.